I woke up to the sound of water, not the soft kind you hear in a meditation app, but the suspicious kind that makes you freeze mid-sip of coffee. I walked over to the kitchen window, looked out, and just stood there blinking. Smack in the middle of my backyard, in the exact spot where my tomatoes were thriving 24 hours earlier, stood a giant, humming, steel tank. Not near the corner, not behind a fence dead center, like someone had dropped it from a helicopter. Tubes, valves, that wet industrial smell, and right there on the side, in all caps stencil font, property of Meadow Springs HOA. Now, I've had some weird mornings, but this took the cake. For 10 seconds I just stood there, coffee mug in midair, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I actually whispered, "What the hell," to no one, just to hear a voice cut through the silence. And when I choked on that sip of coffee out of sheer disbelief, I knew this wasn't a prank, it wasn't a mistake, it was the beginning of a full-on war with the HOA. Let me back up a sec. I live in Meadow Springs, a neighborhood that thinks it's fancy just because the houses have matching shutters and the mailbox colors are approved by committee. Honestly, I didn't mind the rules at first. I thought they'd keep things orderly, no giant plastic flamingos, no backyard wrestling rings, that kind of thing. But what I didn't count on was that the HOA here was run by someone who treated the role like she was auditioning for a dictatorship. Her name? Karen Monroe. And I swear on everything, she lived up to it. Karen once fined a neighbor $200 because his Christmas wreath had a snowman wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Seasonally incoherent, she said. That neighbor moved within the month. Me? I kept a low profile. Trash bins hidden, lawn mowed to regulation height, mailbox exactly the shade of beige required. I played by the book. Until the book got thrown at my face. That morning, once the shock wore off, I pulled on some shoes and walked straight into my backyard. The tank was enormous, like 15 feet tall, humming like a jet engine. It was already leaking from one of the seams, a steady trickle of water pooling around the base. The ground was soggy, and my once perfect fence had started leaning like it had given up on life. There were fresh tire tracks in the dirt, so someone, probably multiple someones, had brought this monstrosity in overnight. Under cover of darkness. Like it was some kind of secret military operation. On my land. I called the HOA first. Straight to voicemail. Typical. So I called Dave, my neighbor 2 doors down. Retired firefighter, hobby drone pilot, and unofficial neighborhood watchdog. Dave picked up immediately. Yeah, I saw that thing coming around 2 a.m. Thought it was weird, figured maybe you'd approved it or something. Would you approve a radioactive storage barrel in your yard? Fair point. So then I went to city zoning. A clerk named Teresa pulled up the local permit records and gave me the most bored look I've ever seen in my life. There's no permit for a tank, she said. That shouldn't be there. Cool. Illegal. Perfect. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? One call and they'd have to yank it out by lunchtime. No. The HOA was doubling down. Karen. Nowhere to be found. But the next morning, I got a letter, not an apology, not a removal notice, but an official HOA memo stating that tampering with the water tank would result in penalties under Bylaw 6.3c. They put it there. On my property. Without consent. And I'd be the one in trouble if I moved it. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just incompetence, this was a power play. Karen wanted to see if she could get away with it. Plant a flag in someone's backyard and dare them to fight back. Well. Challenge accepted. I gathered every document I had: property deed, lot survey, historic plat maps, you name it. I even contacted the original developer, who confirmed that the land the tank was sitting on was 100% private mine. I could have built a gazebo, dug a pool, or installed a goat sanctuary if I wanted. And instead, they gave me a leaky hissing nightmare machine. But I didn't just want it gone, I wanted it remembered. So I filed a permit. Not for removal, but for a koi pond. A beautiful, legally documented, professionally landscaped koi pond. The exact same footprint as the tank. With a bench. And maybe a little plaque. The day of the HOA meeting, I showed up early. The room smelled like disinfectant and lemon passive aggression. Karen was front and center, armed with a clipboard and that tight, fake smile she uses when she thinks she's smarter than everyone in the room. I waited until the open forum. Then calmly handed out copies of my property survey, zoning letters, and permit application. I laid it out simple: the tank was trespassing. I had the right to remove it. And I would be replacing it with something a whole lot more peaceful. Karen's face went stiff. You can't just. I can, I said. And I already have the permits. She blinked. Construction begins next Monday. So if you don't want your tank crushed by a backhoe, I'd recommend you move it. Quickly. By Friday afternoon, a flatbed truck rode in. The tank was gone before sunset. Karen watched from her porch. I gave her a little wave. She didn't wave back. By the end of the next week, the koi pond was in. Smooth river stones, a solar fountain, water lilies, the works. I even installed a motion light that made it glow at night. The neighborhood loved it. Kids brought breadcrumbs. Couples took photos. One guy even proposed to his girlfriend by the water. And Karen. A for sale sign popped up in her yard about a month later. Word is, she moved to a development without an HOA. Ironic, huh? But here's the real kicker. About 2 weeks after she left, Dave came over holding a local paper. You're not gonna believe this, he said, laughing. There on page 6 was a small column: Karen Monroe elected to board of new HOA, promises stronger rules. Some people never learn. But me. I still have my koi pond. Still sit by it with coffee in the mornings. The water's calm, the fish are fat, and the neighborhood finally feels like a place people live, not a place they survive. And if you ask me what I learned from all this, simple. Sometimes the best revenge is landscaping. So tell me, if it had been your backyard, what would you have done? Would you have fought? Given in? Or built something better? Drop a comment. Let's talk about boundaries, the kind that actually matter.